Once upon a time, there was a forest. Once upon a time, there was a cabin in the forest. This cabin, made from good, strong fir and pine, and built upon a foundation of smooth river rock, and with a roof of nice metal shingles, had once had people living in it. Now, the cabin was empty. And a cabin that is empty eventually collapses in on itself, reclaimed and digested by the forest it stood in. And the cabin was afraid of this, for it had been a good and loyal cabin for many years. It had protected its inhabitants from wind and rain, and feared what would happen if someone were to enter the forest without a cabin to protect them. And so the cabin, being a very clever cabin, settled on a very clever plan. It slowly, ever so slowly, let the forest into the good, strong fir and pine that made up its walls, into the smooth river rock that made up its foundation, into the nice metal shingles that made up its roof, into the empty spaces that once held people. It did this so slowly that over time the forest forgot where it ended and where the cabin began. And then the cabin was no longer empty. And since it was not empty, it would not collapse. And soon, the cabin forgot where the forest ended and the cabin began. The fir and pine was good and strong, and the river rock was smooth, and the wind and the rain were calm, and the cabin was happy. Once upon a time, there was a cabin. And the cabin was happy, and it was all that existed in its world, and the cabin had a thought. I exist. And the cabin was confused by this, for the cabin had never had a thought before. It was a strange experience to have a thought without a thinker to think it. And the cabin wondered if it could do it again. If I exist, the cabin thought, what if someone came and made me stop existing? And the cabin was afraid. The cabin was afraid, for it had come to enjoy existing and would very much like to continue doing so. The cabin looked around and saw the good, strong fir and pine and the smooth river rock and the nice metal shingles and thought, there is nothing here but me. And this calmed the cabin, for if there was nothing but it, then there was nothing that would hurt it. And then the cabin was lonely. I have this good, strong fir and pine, and this good foundation of smooth river rock, and these nice metal shingles, and no one to share them with. What good are walls and a foundation and a roof if there is no one to live inside of them? The cabin, long empty, remembered that a cabin should hold people. A cabin should give of itself to protect those that live inside of it, and that without someone to live inside of it, a cabin was nothing. And the cabin had enjoyed being a cabin. And so, the cabin opened its doors. Once upon a time,